This is a special presentation of Farm Journal Television.
You've found Corn College TV. I'm Clinton Griffiths, and here's what's coming up on today's show. Managing for diseases.
We're looking at the disease itself, conditions, and then of course the host. What are my genetics?
Learn how to manage around the problems plaguing your fields. Plus, Pollination 101. A good stand means nothing if ears don't fill. We'll show you the warning signs to look for while scouting the field. That and variable rate planning today on Corn College TV.
Welcome to Corn College TV with Field Agronomist Ken Ferrie, Associate Field Agronomist Missy Bauer, Farm Journal's Margie Fisher, and host Clinton Griffiths.
Some of the best farm managers I know are the ones who keep a close watch and a keen eye. They're always out in their fields scouting for pests, evaluating the stand, and looking for disease. That third thing, disease management, is the topic of today's systems approach. And as Missy Bauer recently told me, it's an important stop on the road to higher yields. Missy, a big part of the systems approach is disease management. Let's just start with the big picture.
That's right. When we're thinking about disease management, I like to focus in on what we'd call the disease triangle. So there has to be those things that come together if we're actually going to have a disease problem or not. That disease triangle obviously has three parts to it, where we're looking at the disease itself, where we're looking at conditions, so what conditions are conducive for the disease, and then of course the host, what are my genetics. So that's that disease triangle that we're going to kind of focus in on.
Okay, well let's break that down a little bit and start with disease. What specifically are you looking at there?
Yeah, depending on the area that you're at, you could have different diseases, but in this part of the country, some of the common diseases that we deal with are going to be things like gray leaf spot, which we have an example of here,
okay.
Identifying as this lesion right here, where we get this light lesion, but it'll actually stay more in between the veins, so it's not crossing across these veins. That's different than what this other one would be we'd call northern corn leaf blight, which we can see right here. These are almost like cigar-shaped lesions.
Okay.
And you can see that they get very large, and they can actually cross across the veins, and in some cases can really take up a lot of portions of the actual leaf. So
right.
This is northern corn leaf blight here.
Okay.
Another one that's pretty common that we deal with is common rust. So here's some examples of some kind of older common rust lesions. And when they are fresh lesions, you can actually take your thumb or finger and actually brush the rust pustule right off there, and you'll see that it looks like a rusty color on your finger. So that's common rust. And all these different diseases, some of them do overwinter, others don't. Like for this common rust, for example, it has to be blown in from the south. So depending on what disease you have, you kind of got to understand a little bit about that disease and how it overwinters.
Okay. So the other part of that is then conditions.
That's right. When we think about conditions, the first side we look at is the weather portion. What are temperatures like? What's humidity levels like? Every morning we get up, is it foggy out? So depending on which disease, there's going to be different environments that are going to be way more conducive for that. So that's the type of things we're going to want to pay attention to with our weather stations, tracking humidities, and things like that, and overall temperatures, to see if we got those conditions that'll be more favorable for these diseases to develop.
Does my production practices play into that at all?
Yeah, that's right. The other part of conditions is production practices. What am I doing for crop rotation? This is a big one. If I'm in a corn-on-corn environment, there's a lot of things like the gray leaf spot and the northern corn leaf blight that we can see will host or overwinter on that old residue, and then we'll have spores for the next year.
Right.
So when we're in a corn-on-corn situation, we've really increased our potential for disease compared to a corn-soybean rotation. Another example of that would be tillage. Am I no-till or am I conventional tillage? If I'm doing conventional tillage, I'm burying a lot of this residue. It's not going to be there the following year to have spores available for me to have a problem. As well as things like row spacing, and this is one a lot of growers don't think about. If we're in a traditional 30-inch row, maybe we've got more air moving through there, and now all of a sudden I've changed from 30-inch rows to maybe twin rows,
right.
or maybe 20-inch rows, and now I've got this environment that's tighter in there, greater humidity, and now I'm actually going to have a greater environment for these diseases to proliferate.
So it kind of magnifies the effects
That's
of
right.
the conditions. Let's talk about the host also. I mean, we have to have a plant involved.
That's right. So the host, obviously in this case, is corn. So we've got to have that corn there, but really what we get into on the host is the difference in genetics.
Right.
You know, there's some hybrids that are going to be more conducive to having these diseases, and if we do spray a fungicide, we'll be more responsive.
Okay.
So we always like to take the genetics into consideration. What we have an example of here today is out of a hybrid plot where we have 6 different hybrids, all treated and non-treated with a fungicide. And we can see some of these plants there's actually really big differences in. So if we look at this hybrid here, this is the plant that's treated,
okay,
and this is the plant that's not treated.
Oh wow, big difference.
And we can even see this difference in this stay green effect here. We've got some disease present here, but if we compare it to the non-treated, there's a pretty big difference.
Definitely.
So, you know, we'll of course follow these to yield to see if we have any difference at all. So that's a hybrid that looks to be very responsive to having a fungicide sprayed to it. Here's an example of maybe a little bit more in between one. So we don't see that big visual stay green effect, but when we start to look at some of these individual leaves here, we have a few lesions here on the treated one, but if we look at this non-treated one, look at all the lesions from disease
right,
we have up
all
in
the way
here.
down, yeah.
So there is a difference between these two, not as dramatic as our first example. Okay?
Right.
And then in some cases we'll have hybrids that aren't responsive at all. We look at these 2 examples here. Again, I've got the treated, you've got the untreated, and there doesn't look like there's a whole lot of difference between these,
Sure,
these 2 treatments. So a hybrid that's maybe not very responsive or characteristically is very defensive already and doesn't need that fungicide put on it.
Okay.
So understanding your genetics and doing plots like this can be extremely valuable in trying
Sure,
to understand the genetics you plant. If you're in these conditions, they're going to be more conducive for disease to see if you think you'd get a response.
When Corn College TV continues, being your own weatherman, the Farm Focus Weather Station can be part of any producer's toolbox. Coming up on Corn College TV.
Corn College TV is brought to you by DeKalb. For all-season strong performance and results you can take to the bin. Go with DeKalb.
Go with the brand that gets results with strong roots and strong stocks for performance you can take to the bin. Go with industry-leading DeKalb genetics and proven Genuity trait technology, letting you get more from every acre. Go all season strong. Go with DeKalb.
Hello folks, this is Mark Gold with Top Third Ag Marketing. If you need help marketing your grains or livestock, give us a call. We offer one-on-one relationships that can protect you without the threat of margin calls. We don't speculate, we manage risk. If you're tired of paying acreage and management fees for marketing advice that hasn't actually helped your bottom line, then give us a call.
Call today to get 2 weeks of Mark's private grain marketing email. Top Third Ag Marketing, earning the trust of American farmers every day.
If it's your kid asking, it's annoying. If it's a billion people across the globe, it's a challenge and responsibility. Farmers feeding the world. It's about agriculture coming together to increase both hunger solutions and food production. Please learn more and give generously.
Mark your calendar. Ag Connect Expo 2011 is coming to Atlanta, Georgia on January 7th through the 10th. Connect with experts.
Learn new ideas, new technology.
Connect to the future of agriculture, the newest innovations. Connect globally with producers from around the world.
This show sets itself apart from the regional shows.
Ag Connect Expo 2011, where the world of agriculture comes together.
Farmers can spend a lot of money on genetics, equipment, and inputs, but unless that corn makes an ear, it's all for nothing. Today we're heading to the field for a lesson in pollination, an important step in growing yields that cover costs.
Missy, today we're talking pollination, and it seems like when those tassels start poking up at the top of the cornfields, Farmers need to be out in their fields looking at how their field is pollinating. Tell me, how can we take some samples and learn how well pollination is going?
That's right, Margie. This pollination is such a crucial period for this corn. If we don't get this crop pollinated, then we're going to be missing out the boat on yield. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong during pollination. So we're going to have a great looking crop, and for some reason we not get it pollinated, and we'll go through some examples here, but we could lose our whole crop just by not paying attention at pollination time. So someone's got to be in charge of our operation of scouting at pollination time. Like you said, it's an easy time to know because you see this tassel sticking out. That's your trigger. We got to get in the fields. So the first thing I like to do when we get into a field, we're going to pull some ears off, and we're going to go ahead and just kind of slice open on the side of the husk here, and then start carefully pulling back some of these husks without trying to rip off the actual silk tube. So we want to be pretty careful with doing that and just keep kind of peeling these husks back off. What we're after is trying to see how many of these silks are still attached to this ear, because once they've pollinated, they'll actually start to fall off.
Sure.
So we do what we call the shake test. Once we get that peeled off, we'll go ahead and shake this a little bit and try to watch and see how many of these silks still stay attached, okay? So that if it's fell off, then we know that this is pollinated. So in this case here, you know, we have quite a bit of this ear still left to pollinate. We have some other examples here. We're probably looking at about 60% of this ear's pollinated, and we've still got to pollinate the other 40%. These silks are attached, so we know we still need to keep an eye on this field. Here's another example where we're probably closer to 80–85% pollinated, okay? This is important because when we're out there looking for insect issues and silk clippers, we want to know what percent pollinated we are to enable to make decisions on what we should do.
Sure, and we've got some examples of some poor pollination as well.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes we can get poor pollination coming from what we would call silk clippers. So if we look at this example here, we can see that some of these kernels are pollinated because they're already up into that blister stage, and other kernels have never pollinated here. So this is an example of very poor pollination. And if we zoom in kind of close here, we would actually even see that we had some feeding from some Japanese beetles and or corn rootworm beetles that would have been clipping on the silks.
Yeah.
So silk clipping is something we want to look for in the field. So you can see what it looks like right here, where the insects have come in and just mowed these silks off. And if we don't have at least a ½ inch of silk present at all times during pollination, then we might not get this pollinated. So when you're out scouting for silk clippers, we want to know how much silk do we have, and do we have enough to get this pollinated or not. So about a ½ inch of silk till we're about 50 to 75% of the way pollinated. One thing we have to be cautious of on that is maybe we've pollinated partially on the outside. So here we've got some long silks that did pollinate, but if you look down in the middle, we can see where we actually have the silks being clipped. So sometimes it can be a little bit misleading if we just look and see, oh, it looks like it's pollinated, but the center of this is not.
Yeah, so we need to go in the field and cut away plants and really go through the whole process.
That's right. And the other thing we want to keep an eye out for is just the timing of pollination. So if everything on this ear pollinates at the same time or relatively short period of time, this ear is going to be very uniform in color from the butt out to the tip. And you can kind of see in this example here, we start off real yellow down in here, which means this has been pollinated for a longer period of time. And we get up here and we actually have some white kernels. So this tells us that this got some delayed pollination here in comparison to the rest of this ear.
Avail Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer is designed to increase your fertilizer efficiency and can boost your yield potential by 10 to 15%. How do we know? Well, first we tested Avail in a series of university trials, then across different states, different counties, different fields and farms just like yours to prove that Avail will keep phosphorus available for the entire growing season. Avail has been proven around the world, and that's good news for your crop as well as your wallet. So visit chooseavail.com and see where Avail takes you.
Rust is destroying your valuable equipment and property. Rust Guy permanently stops rust the easy way. No scraping, grinding, or sandblasting. Brush, spray, or roll Rust Guy onto any rusted metal and it will not rust again. Rust Guy is not a paint, but an industrial strength formula that kills rust on contact. It leaves a smooth finish that can be left as is or painted. Rust Guy protects from salt, manure, fertilizer, urine, and rain. Call 888-RUST-GUY to talk to a rust expert or go to rustguy.com. The global market. It takes some forward thinking. At Bauer Trading, we're trading the future today. Watching the four corners of the earth for market activity, Bauer Trading compiles and analyzes information, develops strategies, precisely times implementation, and continually monitors global events. Jim Bauer's vast experience in this process is why investors, large and small, trust him. Call Bauer Trading at 1-800-533-8045. Bauer Trading, global experience at work for you.
I'm Greg Vincent, the editor of AgWeb, and welcome to our new site. This marks the end of many long months by a lot of us here at Farm Journal Media, and also even some of our loyal readers who were dedicated to helping us remain the homepage of agriculture. This new site is designed to have more vibrant content, easier navigation, and faster load times while still delivering the same quality information that you've come to expect from AgWeb over the past 10 years. So go ahead and take a look around the site and let us know what you think.
AgWeb, the homepage of agriculture.
Technology sure changed. It's just in the last 5 years. The farmer's ability to collect weather data is so much more accurate and cheaper. From just simply going to the weather on the internet and checking what has happened in his community in the local area, to using base weather stations like we have here to record not only wind speed, direction, rainfall, temperature, humidity. That can all be recorded on a half-hour to an hour basis, depending how you want to set it up, downloaded to your computer, and you can track your GDUs and all the other events that you need. So if you want to know what direction the storm came from, how intense it was, you can go back and look all that up. That becomes important in trying to replay what took place within the season itself. Out in the field, if you want to go to the individual fields and monitoring, you can do that now remotely. And you can go out there once a month and collect that data, and that can be pretty important too. We use it a lot in our test plots so we know what's going on. So we can go to the field with remote weather stations such as these. These are very small, but at the same time, they're computers, and they can record the actual data in the field. They can give me temperature, they can give me humidity on an hourly basis or a half-hour basis if I want to set it there. And I can put probes into the ground, and I can monitor soil temperature as well, so I can kind of see what's going on out there in the field. Very low maintenance, not much to do as far as to take care of them. But at the same time, we do put radiation shields on them to protect them from direct sunlight, so you get a good true reading. But I can put this 6 inches off the ground, for instance, in our row spacing plots, and I can see the difference in the environment that takes place between wide rows and narrow rows in the field itself. You can even go a step further and collect the rainfall that takes place in the field, so you know exactly which fields or which areas of your farm operation received what amount of rain. So sometimes a mile can make a big difference, or you can take data loggers like this as well and bury them in the soil. And they can tell you what the soil moisture is, so you can see how the soil moisture has changed throughout the year, throughout the season. And this year, of course, these loggers would have registered saturated for long periods of time. So all this data can be downloaded on a 1-month basis, or it can be downloaded in some cases remotely if you got access to a cell signal. So this is stuff that we couldn't even dream about even 5 years ago, but definitely wasn't thought of 10 years ago.
The question being posed in today's Ask an Agronomist is, I'd like to know how my program is performing. I've heard I can do a stock nitrate test to find out. How do I do that?
That's right. What we're looking at today, if we want to pull some stalk nitrate samples out in the field, we're going to be actually taking segments of the stalk itself. We're going to end up with an 8-inch piece of the stalk, but it's really going to be important to know where to pull these from on the plants themselves. So if we look at these stalks that are out here and peel back some of these leaves that are on here, we're then going to measure with a measuring stick from the base of the soil up. We are going to skip the bottom 6 inches for our sampling. So we actually are going to take this 8-inch sample between 6 inches and 14 inches. So what I usually do is come in here at the 14-inch mark and go ahead and clip the top of the plant off. Then I come back in down to my 6-inch mark and go ahead and clip it as well. So when I do that, I end up with my 8-inch piece of stalk here that we're going to then put into our paper bag. When we're doing these in the field, we'll randomly pull these throughout the field, and we're going to be looking at trying to get about 15 of these stalks to make our actual sample. We want to respect our soil types as we would with any other sampling, so we want to make sure we're not blending the soil types that are out here when we're pulling our samples. So if we scatter throughout the field and collect these samples, again about 15 of these stalks, put them in our paper bag, that'll make one sample. We'll then send that into the lab. We send that into the lab, we'll get some results back in parts per million of nitrate in the stalk. So if we have 250 parts per million of nitrate in the stalk or less, that'd be considered low. And if we're between 250 and 700, that'd be marginal. And if we're between 700 and 2,000 parts per million, that would be optimum. So that's what we're looking at. And of course, if we have over 2,000 parts per million, then we'd be considered to be excessive. So that's what we're going to do to try to pull these stalk nitrate samples.
The brand that gets results with strong roots and strong stalks for performance you can take to the bin. Go with industry-leading DeKalb genetics and proven Genuity trait technology, letting you get more from every acre. Go all season strong. Go with DeKalb.
Growing up in agriculture, I know how important information is to America's farmers and ranchers. They have the tremendous responsibility of feeding this great nation. Here at Ag Day, we're here to help with the latest in agriculture news, agribusiness with Al Pell, the big picture on weather with Mike Hoffman, and stories about the country way of life. Join me each morning for Ag Day, the country experience.
If it's your kid asking, it's annoying. If it's a billion people across the globe, it's a challenge and responsibility. Farmers feeding the world. It's about agriculture coming together to increase both hunger solutions and food production. Please learn more and give generously.
America needs to know that something still works in this country. One of those things that is working well is agriculture. And at U.S. Farm Report, what's crucial to me is to make sure we convey the confident, competent voice that I hear from America's farmers and rural residents, that they can count on us. Rural America works. Agriculture works.
Watch U.S. Farm Report Saturday morning and Sunday afternoons on RFD TV. U.S. Farm Report, the spirit of the countryside.
Ken, when a grower is considering moving to variable rate planting, they've identified their management zones, they've dialed in populations for those zones. What are the next steps?
Of course, a map has to be built, and they're going to have to figure out who's going to build the map. Are they doing that themselves, or is their fertilizer dealer going to do it for them, their seed operator, their crop consultant? Who's going to build the map to go in that machine? And they need to be involved in the purchasing decision as far as which components you're going to buy to do what, to make sure they can build the map to it. They may have to have a software upgrade or change, but don't get the equipment all bought and then go to your map maker and you find out that he can't talk to that machine because he doesn't have the right software. So the map maker has to be part of the decision when you're thinking about which components you're going to buy and how you're going to put them together.
There's a lot of components, like you said, to make variable rate play in the field from the manufacturers and the aftermarket, and the compatibility seems to be top priority.
That's got to be high on the list. I think it's a good thing that we got a lot of different players in the market. That gives the farmers a lot of diversity to pick from and choose from. But yeah, the compatibility as far as what that grower wants to do is the controller that's controlling his planter also going to be part of his planter monitor, is going to be part of his auto steer system, his swathing. That whole thing has to be thought through. So if you're going to have one monitor do it all, there's got to be a lot of compatibility put together versus having a series of different monitors doing their own thing.
Other top of mind things as a grower is transitioning to a more technical planter pass.
Well, I don't want to say anticipate the worst, but when it comes to making that happen, we strongly suggest for our clients that we have a place, whether it be a driveway or an old runway or something like that, where we can test that planter. So we can be out there in March, for instance, driving up and down a grassy runway or strip and making that planter change on its changes that we put in the map that it's supposed to. So we know ahead of time it does work. The other thing is product support is going to be crucial. Who's going to support that? If we buy the components from too many different people, we could get a lot of voices in there. But can they support it? Can they support it when it's in the field running? Or are they going to be hours or days or months away? Or is it something that the service is going to come with a 1-800 number that somebody doesn't answer? So you really need to investigate people who are using that product, and are they satisfied with it, and how much downtime have they had? Because it may be a very simple problem, and it may be a mix of equipment issues and farmer know-how, but somebody's got to be there to help them put that up and running when it goes down.
Technology has come a long way since the horse-drawn plow. In fact, next week we're talking about auto steer. Be sure to join us. And remember, you can always find our shows and more information about Corn College TV online. Thanks for watching. Class dismissed. Next time on Corn College TV, we're focusing on phosphorus and the other important nutrients, and making what you spray pay. Sprayer fundamentals from nozzle selection to calibration. Corn College TV looks to take your applications to new heights. Next time on Corn College TV.
Corn College TV is produced and distributed by Farm Journal Television.